Every time I pick one up, I feel that history. I feel the heart of the craftsman who tried to make that thing and succeeded in making that thing. And somehow, miraculously, it's here for us today. I'm Jeff Pringle. I'm a collector of swords, axes, and other edge tools from the Viking period and around the world. Three swords, 40 axes, 60 spears, 200 knives, 6 tulwars, 3 shamshirs, and hella cards. This sword is late Viking, early Crusader. Not much left of it, but I love it. You can actually see the leather covering of the wood and the stitching that they did on the leather covering. So much of collecting amongst normal people is they're collecting to collect. They want the complete set. This is a Viking sword, how they decided to decorate it. It's pretty amazing. Because I'm collecting to gain knowledge about obscure topics, the collection happens organically. It's kind of accidental. It doesn't mean anything to me. It's the knowledge I can get from it. You can see how they cut the lines for the overlay. I have a general idea of where they came from and why I have them, but I have no master list of this is what I own. Because I'm a swordsmith, I realized early on that you need to just dive in and look at original artifacts and base your process on that. I do have to destroy some artifacts to learn about how they were made. I know it's not entirely archaeologically appropriate to be grinding halfway through a spear to see how that smith had refined his metal and assembled his metals and assembled the spear from those assembled metals, but I think that the knowledge gained is worth the price of admission. And you know, there are a lot of artifacts that are sitting in museums, rusting away. Most of the replicas I make are sold to collectors or living history people. Living history is giving up all of the modern conveniences and living life as it was lived 1,000 years ago. The aspect of living history that really appealed to me was the fact that you had to make stuff. You had to sew your own tunic, you had to cast your own strap ends, and it was that process that is what really engaged me. When I was 7 or 8, my mother was a librarian, and instead of feeding me normal books that people these days read, she was giving me Ivanhoe, Le Morte d'Arthur, and that sort of set this chivalric seed in my brain, which later on cropped up when I was in high school. The Viking period was a period of radical evolution in the design of the sword. At the beginning of the Viking period, swords were made from multiple pieces of metal. They were pattern welded. They were ornately embellished with gold hilts and were much more a status symbol than anything else. Apparently the Vikings did most of their fightings with spears and axes. But the fancy Vikings had this awesome sword in case things got real. At the end of the Viking period, they had improved smelting technology to the point where they could just hammer out a sword from one piece of smelted metal. Start in the middle and then move out to the side and then move out to the other side. Back in. A while ago, I realized that there are no commercial steels that are anything like what they were using 300 years ago, 1,000 years ago. And the only way to really understand what was going through these craftspeople's brains was to start from first principles and take iron ore and make metal in the way that they did. There's something significant about taking a pile of sand or rocks and putting it into a vessel and a couple hours later coming out with a chunk of metal. That's alchemy. That's weird. That's cool. I am primarily focused on function, not so worried about finish. You're competing against machines that can stamp iPhones out, 600 a minute. Why do you need to make it so perfect? There's like a wrong emphasis on perfection. "2,000 years of empirical smithing knowledge went out the window. They forgot it in 100 years. And that stuff is still recapturable, but it takes some work. Actually, sewing the seam is my main task of the day. And I kind of love sewing, but I always approach it a little trepidatiously. I love the whole thing, the alchemy of it, the chance to give yourself third-degree burns. Then when it comes time to curl it, you start on the edges. Yeah, I can go to the store and buy myself an iPhone, or I can go to the forge and forge myself a sword. They're both legitimate processes, but one of them is more enriching in some way. There we go.